So John and I didn't talk a whole lot about what we were putting in our presentation, and we kind of conversed a little bit. I think our presentations are fairly synonymous, probably from a little bit different sides and standpoints. I'm the Extension Precision Ag and Irrigation Specialist at the University of Georgia. So was jointly appointed for a little while to Auburn. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I spent when I found out that you were no longer a part of that, I was like, we lose again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's okay.
But so I'm going back and looking at some precision ag stuff here, and just like with John's, you know, it's kind of informal. We can go through and talk, discuss stuff, and all that. Just like he said, you know, we've been doing precision ag since the early 1990s. You know, we look at stuff, aerial imagery, GIS, GPS stuff. You know, some of it's cost prohibitive at certain times, getting better now. You know, we're doing soil sampling, some yield monitors out there, variable rate technology, and then we had some active sensors and all. Guess what? We're moving forward, but considering we've been looking at this stuff now for 20, going on 30 years, we really probably hadn't taken the leaps and bounds that we feel like we should have, or I feel like we should have on some of the stuff. So what do we got to do to keep that going and get where we want to go? So I pulled this out. What's the adoption rate of technology? So why aren't we doing it? Just like John alluded to, one of the couple of things, the need in a particular farming situation, we don't feel like we need that. We don't recognize the need or see it. We're not going to adopt it. We say, well, I can get by without that. I don't need it. The cost of technology. Guess what? If it looks like it costs a lot, we don't see a cost benefit. Whether or not, you know, it's the cure-all, we're probably not going to adopt it. So it's like with the peanuts. Current commodity prices, of course, play really, really big on that. They're going to push what we can afford, whether that's irrigation, whether that's technology, whether that's new equipment, all that. If we can't afford it, we can't go with it. As he hit on, attitude of the farmer, or is hired help towards advanced technology, right? Do you want to, where's that age cut off? Where's that skill cut off at on your employees, or what you want to deal with, what you want to manage? Is it there or is it not? And then, like we talked about kind of with the cost, what's the return on investment of a strategy that we're implementing? You know, does it pay for me to pay John to come do grid sample for me? Do I feel like it? You know, does it pay for me to invest in auto steers? Does it pay for a particular technology? Guess what? We say we have a high level of field variability. And you know what? I've spent time in the Southeast. I did my PhD at Oklahoma State. Everywhere we go, I spent some time and did a couple of field days up around the Maryland, what do you call it, the southern New England or middle eastern shore region. It's the same everywhere we go. You know, we see field variability. Ours is just unique to this area. You know, unique soil types, stuff a little bit different. So we do have smaller, more irregular shaped fields, I think, especially the most of the Midwest and probably some of the Mid-South here. Can have large dynamic differences within the farm field level and very diverse cropping systems. So, you know, the smaller fields, we're not running this big equipment that they're running in the Midwest. We're not looking at, you know, 72-row wide planters and some of this stuff there. We just can't do it. It's not economically feasible for us to buy that equipment. Even going back to saying we only have a certain number of hours we can spend in a particular field, you know, we're better off to allocate those hours to a piece of equipment that fits and match up our farm size than trying to get a larger piece of equipment out there. Section control can be very valuable. Like you said, most of the guys have it now, and I don't care if that's planters, if that's sprayers, anything else. When we're looking at situations like this technology really helps, and we do see higher adoption rates of that. What that does to us is a higher number of management units, and I don't mean management zones in a field. I mean, we've just got more differences to look at there, right? We're moving through and having to look at stuff differently in those different fields. Large dynamic differences in farm field levels. You know what, our landscapes just kind of are conducive to that. You know, it depends on where we're at. It could be a soil type or texture, elevation. You know, in South Georgia where we're at, there's a lot of swampy land and low-lying land and stuff, so we see a lot of standing water and stuff in the edge of the fields and everything. I know you get into, I'm not sure if you're in the Black Belt region or not.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you've got
huge problem. Lack of poor drainage.
That's right. You know, you get those areas.
Lack of drainage.
There's no drainage in your area. I've worked with the D's a little bit, you know, out past you, and that's the same way with them. So actually, we're still working with the D's on some stuff. Diverse cropping systems. So I said, unlike row crop farmers in much of the rest of the U.S., farmers in Southeast, Mid-South, or Cotton Belt, we can throw Cotton Belt on this, right? Or cotton and rice are kind of synonymous, but we grow cotton, peanuts, corn, soybeans. I didn't put rice up there because we don't grow it in the Southeast much, but you know, if we start looking at that, if we're in the Midwest and we're going corn and soybeans, we probably got one combine, we got one planter, and we got a yield monitor that'll handle all that. Let's start throwing these in, let's start throwing this in. What does that do to us? We're looking at, we need technology to match up all those crops. So, and then, you know, I'm not sure about farther out, but I know in South Georgia, we have a lot of farmers that'll rotate vegetables in on their cotton fields and do some other stuff. They do some intercropping stuff with watermelons here lately in cotton. We throw some wheat, sesame, canola, whatever, you know, any of that in there too that we have to consider. You know, that's a lot of investment in capital equipment that we have to make already if we're doing this carbon system. So that makes investment in technology not as attractive sometimes. Key equipment or technology. I try to break it into 4 or 5 categories that I'm going to talk about quickly, and that I think you know we should look at and focus on if we're going to implement a precision ag strategy. So vehicle guidance, just as John said, adopted very rapidly in the Southeast due to quick ROI when utilizing peanut production systems. If you're in a peanut growing state and you know a lot of guys that grow peanuts, you see a lot of auto students, you saw it early. Go to the Midwest somewhere. I've taught a lot of the deer guys and other people. You go to the Midwest and they said, you know, they still have guys that aren't adopting auto steer yet. You know, it doesn't make, for some of them, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense yet. For this, it makes sense to go ahead and do it. It's an immediate payback. Soil sampling, you're doing grid versus zone, like you talked about. So, variable rate technology, you know, what is it? Is it map or sensor based? We doing fertilizer, seeding, irrigation, pesticides. You know, what is it? This just happened to be a VR nitrogen rigs, a VR sprayer controller. We talk about it and go as far as we want, you know, in any of it. How are we doing that technology though? Yield monitors. So this is just kind of the parts of the yield monitor, a little graphic there. But how are we using them? What are we doing with them? Remote sensing. So I threw this in there. I had those first 4, and then I threw remote sensing in there because, you know, it's pretty big. So are we looking at an active sensor or a passive sensor? So right, passive sensors are our cameras here, you know, and we can have some active sensors potentially on here. You know, this is when I think of active sensor, this is the first one that comes to mind. It's a green seeker or a crop circle or something that produces its own light source and brings it back. So we're not dependent upon environmental conditions like we are with some of these. You know, we could go out and have a cloud come up. It might mess up the readings that we're getting with some of these sensors. So all of a sudden, and we've been doing this since the late 80s, early 90s, right? Remote sensing, but all of a sudden, due to these unmanned aerial systems, everybody's wanting to get back into it. And I mean, I see the value in it. I did a lot of my master's research when I was at Clemson. So going back to his, I was pulling for Clemson.
That's right.
Never been pulling for the SEC, sorry. But when I was at Clemson, we did a lot of work with green seekers and doing some nitrogen prediction work, particularly on cotton there, but there's a lot of algorithms out there and a lot of work that's been done to try to reduce nitrogen consumption, nitrogen requirements and all. These can just be more rapid, right? With this system, you're either, if you got a handheld, you're spotting the field. If you got a sprayer rig with a 6-row, you're having to drive the field. And I know guys that do that. They have it on a sprayer. Every time they go spray, anytime they're in the field, they're just collecting data just to see what's going on. But if you put an NDVI sensor on here, then you can do it a lot quicker and be a lot less intrusive than you are actually out in the field there. So, vehicle guidance, the manual steering aid, or are you auto steer? So by manual, I mean, is that a light bar? Is that something that you're still doing the steering on? You're just guiding it by. Here we are, light bars. So this is just a couple examples. You know what? What I was trying to show with this picture is you can move a light bar into anything else. You know, we use them a lot of times for fertilizer spreaders, or we're pulling the truck doing stuff out there in the field, because we can just stick this in just like a regular GPS that you have in a car, and all it is just a series, as it says, a series of lights or a track that shows your current location of vehicle and where you need to be and how far offline you are from that track, and you need to adjust yourself manually to get back home. So it's still relying upon the tractor driver. This is just a good little graphic. No real numbers or anything on it. Just showing a fertilizer spreader in a typical application without any type of guidance there. You know, what happens? This happens, we shut it off too early, we think we're close, we're not. We panic and realize we weren't close there. It's just like cutting your grass in your yard or doing anything right. You're like, oh crap, I missed that little strip, but next time I'm gonna go over and get it. It's the same kind of thing, right? So we go here, we get some sort of steering aid, and all of a sudden we start doing a little bit better job matching these up. So what do? We save product, we save time, fuel, field time, whatever else. Auto steer, guess what? That means it does what it says. It's automatically driving itself. We all know what that is. It has sensors, some sort of position sensor, gyros on the wheel. we turn the steering on, either manual switch or we hit our steer button, which I didn't give you the right screen. There's a steer button on here you turn it on with when you get into that screen. Integrated GPS on top of the tractor with, I didn't put the antenna, we use the RTK signal there, sub-inch control, and we're ready to roll with it, right? Take a nap, read a book, play on Facebook, whatever we want to do. Soil sampling, so grid versus zone. Where do we want to go? John said he goes smaller than 2.5 if we're looking at specialty crops, right? If we're getting in fields, I don't know, somewhere 2.5 to 5. He and I talked, so I had to throw that or grader in there if we taught him to ride up, which I understand as you start to kind of get a feel for a field or a particular grower. So I'm not ready to invest that much money. You might have to go a little larger, but I'd say somewhere in that 2.5 to 5 range, it might be where we want to do. And I call that software created grids, right? We go out there and we draw those on that field or hand created, or how we want to do it. And that's kind of what I'm showing here. These are much tinier, much smaller. What would be there? And the process I used is on zones developed based on another measured input. So I've got some sort of measured input here that I average in some small zones, and I end up creating this map out of it. I find some of these trends that we see going on in this field, and it's harder to see on a projector, but you see darker areas falling in there, et cetera, et cetera. And then I go out and I sample only in these zones instead of laying a grid on there. You know, and this was yield data in this case, but we could do it with, you know, anything. So, variable rate, you know what, I put one slide, I think, up here, because we can talk about it all day. We can variable rate almost anything nowadays. You know, anything we can think of, we can run it. So here's just a few acronyms. Variable rate application, you hear VRA or VRT is a variable rate technology. Or if we want to get really fancy, you can call it SSCM, or site-specific crop management, right? They all require inputs to be applied on an optimal basis for the local conditions. That's our goal. We're looking at local conditions there. Here's the good stuff. I hope y'all walk away when I get done with this. We've got about 10 or 12 minutes left, so I want to go slow and spend some time on it. How do you use yield data and what do we do with it? You know, what can we move into? So I did put a lot more slides on this than I did any of the other technologies. So I feel like this is still somewhere that we have the tool and we just are not utilizing the way we should at this point. So yield data is an entrance. I like this quote. You can search, there's a little video, YouTube video, and I cannot remember the guy's name. But he said yield data is an entrance and final exam of any precision agriculture operation. So we have to know, if we make a change, what did that change do to me? If I don't know, if I don't sit there and quantify that change, I could be hurting myself, be helping myself. I don't know. I don't really know what it's doing to my farming operation. I threw a few types up there. Some of these graphics are getting a little older and they may not exist anymore. A lot of them are still relevant. So John Deere Case Ag Leader, if you're looking at an impact sensor, y'all have all seen that plastic impact plate right there. It fits on a clean grain elevator. As this grain comes across, that's how it uses it. The flow of grain hits that plate, goes down. So it's looking at an impact over time. That's why it's called a mass flow. What change do I have on that load cell here? Micro track, I pulled the graphic for it out, I think, yeah. But all it has is kind of hard to see. These don't, I think you can't get these anymore. There's just two forks right here. And so they're just sitting down in your flow. It's working the same way as the stuff's coming by. They tried it on peanuts in Georgia years ago and made peanut butter with it. So get away from it for that. Same way, here's another one. You got a load cell force measurement here. This just has a better diagram of what's going on up here. See the same thing as it comes around, it's applying a force at this rotational point, and so we see what that mass flow is. TopCon has one. I don't know if y'all talked to them or not. There's a TopCon dealer here. This is how theirs works. So basically, in this case, it was like a laser scanner. That was farm scan, but as you go by on a clean grain elevator, it's just measuring how much grain's sitting there. So it knows the cup size, and then it knows the angle of repose of that grain, and if you got more or less grain in it going by over a time, again, it's mass flow, how much is moving through there at a particular time. That's how we measure. And then this is Ag Leader's optical. There's two more types I didn't put on there. There's a microwave, which is a John Deere cotton yield monitor. Mounts outside the duct, needs a plastic duct to look at. Or there's an Ag Leader cotton yield monitor, which is optical, light beams that are broken. It's a bowl counter. In this case, it's actually on a peanut combine. So, all right, let's go through using yield data. This is the good stuff. So we can put the tools out there. A good quote I heard, John and I talked about it, and you alluded to it. A lot of guys will buy a $750,000 cotton picker nowadays, right? And they hit the delete button on the $5,000 option. So you're deleting something that is less than 0.01% of the cost of that whole machine. for a value that you can really, and here's a straightforward case. You would have paid for a yield monitor in less than a year in one field here. So here's visual analysis in this case. This is a field I worked in. It just happened to be from Oklahoma. But in 2008, he looked at it and he said, man, I've got a problem. And it's a bad problem. We're a bale or less. Whereas I'm looking at some of my better field, my average field's about 2 bales, 2 to 3 bales in here, right? It was a simple problem in this case. He had drain tile, and he got there and got to looking around, and his drain tile was stopped up. It was just a wet spot. So he fixed it, and look what happened. I went up to my high category. I'm up to the almost 4 bell range, 3 to 4 bell range, all because of that. Very easy
He'd
fix.
been applying the same amount of inputs in that area that was not yielding anything, and so when he got what the limiting factor was out of the way,
All of a sudden, that input is sitting there because your crop wasn't making anymore, right? You build up soil nutrients. Mm-hmm. So that was an easy sell for me in this case. Analytics, I could go through a lot of cases, but this one, I just wanted to give you a little warning on analytics. You look at this for a second, and, you know, if you see the black dots appearing where those whites are, they're not supposed to be there as you look around. And I guess the question is, are these lines straight or curvy? Do we know? You know, I tried to put some red lines on there to show you that they're actually supposed to be straight, but my point with this is, and we can find all of these little graphics like that, but if you start sitting there staring at yield data too long, you don't realize what you're doing. You don't realize your mind's doing it, but you might be seeing patterns that don't actually exist. So sometimes it's better to bring a scientific basis and let some software or do some sort of analytics with some numbers for a few minutes to make sure it verifies what you're looking at. Like I said, that's an easy case. We know that's there, but some other cases, if we look at it, may not be. You know, if we stare at this map too long, we're probably going to start seeing some stuff pop out. But I just want to, I'm going to walk through the process, but this is from a yield map to a profit map. So how do we do that? We got our yield in bushels per acre. We calculate our profit, and I tell you, overall, he's not looking so hot in this field. I mean, he's doing okay. That's dollars per acre. His blue's doing all right, but man, these yellows and reds are not doing that great. His field's kind of, I think he's borderline on that field. Here's another field, cotton lint. So this is where it's really important too, where our yields come in. So cotton lint at $1. When are we going to see that again? Hopefully soon. But 75 cents. When are we going to see 75 cents again? You know, but you can tell this is a pivot irrigated field, right?
yes, sir.
Right there. So all you see is wheel tracks. But if he's at $1 per pound, all of a sudden he's doing pretty good. You know, we see a lot of yellows and greens in there, very few reds. We dropped down, he's still losing 9.7% at that. We move up to where cotton dropped, all of a sudden he goes to 37% loss on that field. He needs to consider another crop in that field or doing something. Something is not good in there. So how do we do it? Pretty straightforward. We use, on the fields we're looking at, we either get farmer cost, what he told us or he logged, or our extension budgets, so what it costs. And we can debate on how accurate those are or not, but that's what we use for our input costs to our production costs when we develop these calculations. So it's unit yield times unit price minus unit production cost. Pretty easy. So when we export a yield file, we've got columns of yield data, right? All we do in Excel is go over our next column and plug this formula in. And then we can calculate in each one of those cells, did we make money or did we not? And we might really want to spend some time on some of those areas that we're not making money on. And these are just 3 examples, and I'll run through those quick. If we're at 3 bales per acre, 1,500 pounds at 75 cents, we're profiting. We're at $577 per acre. We drop that down to $1.50. Production costs will remain the same. That's the production cost, $577 per acre. We're profited in this case $548 per acre. So we're clearing. If we go down to $1.50 yield, all of a sudden we're breaking basically even. We're right at that. And if we drop down to a bale yield, those low areas, we're losing $200 per acre. That's these areas that we need to focus on. We either reduce inputs or we need to figure out what's going on. And I think this map does a pretty good job of telling us what we might want to look at. So here's 3 years. We got a corn map, and we move to a peanut map. So if we look at our corn, we're doing no good in 2 years in corn, no matter what this guy tried to do. Whatever's going on between corn prices, and whatever interaction he's having in that field, he's just losing money in corn. But makes a decision, gets out of corn and switches to peanuts in a year. all of a sudden that's a significant difference. So that's something we got to consider, and that's individual case basis, right? It's going to be, you know, where you're at, what your soil is, what you don't typically grow, et cetera, et cetera. It's not a fix-all, but it's something to consider. So you can go in and look. Cotton Ink's website's really good about this. I don't know if y'all have utilized the resources. They've actually have done some pretty impressive resources there. So a lot of us specialists have done talks. There's a lot of yield monitor calibration stuff there, VR technologies, irrigation management, all kinds of stuff up there that you can watch some quick 15 to 20 minute real talks to learn some of this stuff on there. The profit map one is up there, and a few more. So go in there and look under the precision crop management for cotton. Here's a publication that we put out. That one map that I showed you is out of it. There's a lot more in there. So we had a national project, and there was like 10 or 15 of us that came together. George from University of Georgia led it, but there's a bunch of us that contributed to it when you get into it. But it's promote the use of yield maps among cotton producers. So we just wanted a quick booklet that just goes through case by case and shows you if you implemented a yield monitor, how long would it take you to take it back? And there's a lot of different cases in there. John Fulton put one in from Auburn. There's a good one in there from, I don't know who the producer was, but they're in there from all around the nation. So I like this. I got this from just came out. Y'all haven't seen it yet, but that 2015 Cotton Natural Resources Survey that they did past year. It'll be out in print very soon. It's available on the website now. It was released like last week. And this goes back to what you said, right? And we can look at it wherever we're at. In the far west, I think it's because of different types of cotton. This is the number you see, no yield monitor, and this is just the number of responses, right? And their yield. So we look here in the far west, we've got 30 people responded without a yield monitor, 3 responded with. About a 400, 500 pound per acre difference. Here, southwest, 251 versus 26. Again, we see 300, 400, 500 pound difference. Mid-South, 125 to 74. We're getting a little closer. We're getting a few more guys in Mid-South using it. Gap's not quite as high, but we're still seeing a 300 or 400 pound increase, maybe 200 or 300 pound for having a yield monitor. And then in the Southeast, had a lot of responses, but only 80 people with yield monitor, but again, they had higher yields. So does that mean that putting a yield monitor on your cotton picker automatically boosts your yield? No, it doesn't. What this means is that the guys that have the yield monitors are doing something with them that means they're getting a little bit higher yield. So keep that in mind. I think people I like to put this in here for argument's sake. This is, I took some yield data off of the field and then pulled some soil samples, trying to determine what was going on. I got absolutely no correlation between my nutrients and my yield. So if we look, yield, PP, this is ppm on the bottom of NP and K. So what's going on there? We got some smart guys in the room. I can tell by talking to y'all. Why is there no correlation there? Is that, or let me start with this, is that a good or a bad thing?
Doesn't matter. I mean, it's not a good or a bad if it is, because it's dependent upon the field.
That's true. In this case, I would say it's probably a good thing in a way, because if he was continuing to get a response, let's say if you're continuing to get a nitrogen response out of a yield, that means that was your limiting factor, right?
That's right, yeah.
And so in this case, I think we're good. I think that none of these are probably his limiting factors, so he needs to explore something else.
Can you do, when you look at that 1 year's data, for tillage it's trends.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'd have to do this over a 10-year period in these same fields to tell.
This was 3.
That's still not, that might be in sandy soil.
Well, this was in Oklahoma. This is there was other underlying issues in this field, and that's what we were trying to identify. Actually, in this field, there were saline issues. And so, yeah, it was bad. And so we were trying to just make sure that nothing was here, and we didn't see anything with our nutrients, of course, but we wanted to axe out every other potential in that case. I agree with you. You need to build more and more data. You know, I think with yield data, you probably want a minimum of 3. You could slide by with 2 years if you can't have 3. I don't like doing that. I like a minimum of 3 and then working beyond that. And I'll still have guys that'll tell me, well, I can't get 3 years of yield data in a particular field. We've got to do something. Yeah, something.
Let me, if you've got a second, I've got
Yeah.
a couple of questions
We can,
along that.
we're basically there.
One of the issues that we have with our yield data on our, pretty much on anything, but definitely with on our grain combines, is that where you have either rows that were missed or rows that didn't match up, especially if you've got two combines, somebody's, and you've got streaks that are gonna be in the field that you're gonna have red because he's only harvesting half of it. He didn't take the time to go in and change his widths or any of that. I mean, it's, you know, it's real world stuff. Are you aware of any software that can pull that out, you know, to exclude that kind of stuff?
Are you familiar with USDA's yield editor?
I am not, but I will.
Give that a try. USDA has a software out, and I've not used it personally. I've had, does that seem to work well for some of that stuff? Personally, with me, I pull it in and delete it out.
Monsanto and all their yield data, they use that program, or it's a modification of that
They
program.
do. I think you were right. I've heard that
It's a
before
good
too.
program.
It's
It's
free.
kind of quirky, yeah. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
And another just an observation with some of the NDVI we've had done, we've had a good bit of we've had some aerial imagery done, and on corn specifically, and looking at it, overlaying it with it's not scientific now, this is observational, but overlaying it with a yield map, and it has been close enough for what we're doing out here on a field level basis that I'm comfortable with taking the NDVI.
And use
But
it.
the question that I don't have the answer to is, when you go to other crops, when you go to beans, you go to peanuts, you go to cotton, is that correlation gonna be anywhere near what it is with the corn that we've seen?
Probably not.
Uh,
Some of them maybe.
Well-
Peanuts, I can't speak for. We've done very little NDVI work with that. At least I personally, I've seen very little done nationally on peanuts.
I got a coworker that they do some NDVI on peanuts, and they're using it to go in and identify nematode hotspots, their different disease issues and stuff like that. But
See, on peanuts, I think you see a lot more, what you're saying, like John said, you see a lot more vegetative destruction or lack of vegetation on NDVI. Whereas with cotton and corn, soybeans, I'm not sure. I can surely vouch for cotton and corn. You're seeing other issues, biomass issues
That's
that
right.
are
That are
causing
not
yellowing
yellow.
of the leaves. You know, it's lack of nitrogen, or if it's a rust or something
I
else.
understand that.
So that's why I'm not going to sit here and confidently tell you that.
Well, and I understand but in trying to find something that can bridge the gap in some of these years where we don't have a yield monitor.
I say give it a try. You know, it's going to tell you something that's going on in the field, right? Whether it's
That's right, yeah.
you're still going to see trends there. And so like you said, not scientifically, we couldn't publish for it doing it that way.
No, I understand that.
But if you feel comfortable doing it the way, I don't see a problem with it. You know, you start seeing those same trends there. You know your field better than anybody else out there does. So go for it. I would completely encourage you to look at it and do that way. And that's why using UAVs and stuff is starting to become a little better, because we can get a map very quickly and easily, right? Whereas with yield data, we're moving data, we're trying to edit it, we have associated issues and all that stuff. And I completely understand why, if we can get a picture of that field and we feel comfortable, all right, this makes sense, you can sit there and draw over the field with crayons and say, these are the areas that I want to focus on, right? And so you get to that point. I agree with you completely. I think that's a good step to take. I don't know if we kind of talked about this. Yeah, I talked about it already. So another good website there, Cotton Incorporated, is a little proud of, is the Cotton Cultivated. I think it's promoted in your back of your book, but it kind of goes along with the resource site. But in here, they gather all this stuff together. All the stuff I'm talking about, you can go in there and find it very quickly. It's mobile friendly, so you click on it and you can look at some. I think they have some of the recordings on there, but I know they have all the publications and stuff that we have that talk about all this stuff. And you know, I'm just pushing because they do a good job with it. You know, there's good resources there, and I think it's farmer friendly and consultant friendly resources that you can go in and quickly get an answer instead of sitting there. One we just finished and we just got out, I was part of, was a soil moisture sensor placement one. So, you know, that's a big question, where we put soil moisture. It's a 5 or 8 page document, depending on if you're looking at drip, overhead. I can't remember if we did some furrow or not in there, but it's in the humid regions. So it goes through really quickly how we delineate where we want to put soil moisture sensors. So good stuff there. Thanks for it's lunchtime, so I don't want to.
John, I got a question for you. Where do you, in your business, where do you want to go from here? You know, I mean, you've got 6, 8, 10 years of some good soil fertility data. You know, I mean, you're able to look and see from trends and what you've done and all, but where do you see aiming over the next 2 to 3 years with some of this precision stuff?
Two places I would like. I think yield data is,
Yep.
is what I've got to start doing better, and it's not just grower, it's me too. It's easier for me to go, instead of driving, getting his yield data, coming back, processing. It's easier for me to send my guys, say, hey, get a full 2.5 acre grid, and I'm done. You know, so I'm guilty of it too. And then the UAV, the aerial imaging, I think those are two places I'm interested.
On your comment on the zones, one of the things that we have been forced into doing with our black belt soils is that because we've got two soil types, Sumter and Baden, that are in the same field. Sumter's always going to be a high pH soil, of, 6.7 to possibly 8.0, and Baden is, if not lined properly and taken care of, it's going to tend to be a low pH soil, which would be 5.6 to we've got 4.7, 4.6 we found. Well, what we've had to do, we've actually overlay our soil maps, and when we lay a grid, then we're having to take and pull those grid points over into individual soil types, because I did not realize it, but in 2011, the first time I ever grid sampled a field for one of the growers, we had low pH soil, we had high pH soil, we had correct pH soil according to the grids. But what we were doing, even in those 2.5 grids, we were pulling we were getting 10 or 12 samples in a circle area there, and we were mixing a high pH and a low pH to get an average, great looking pH.
Looks good, yeah.
And over the following 3 years, anyway, the light bulb finally went off. Hey, dummy, you can't be mixing Baden and Sumter together, because that was no different than what we've been doing for the last 25, 30 years before that, was mixing it all together. And because of the propensity of that black belt soil to be such a high pH, if you're going and you're pulling a soil sample in an 80-acre field, even if you have some of those lower areas, it's always going to read high. So I've got several customers that were liming some of those soils, and they had neighbors, they were laughing at them. What the hell are you doing liming it? Everybody knows that's high pH ground, but it's not. That Baden soil type is going to have a little red tinge to it and I can't explain the soil structure part, but anyway, it is going to be a lower pH soil type. And so what we're finding, because we got CECs that are 25, 28, and some of the ground, it's calling for 5 tons of lime to the acre. We're putting 2 tons and then coming back and putting out 2 tons, because the other thing we found out is just because that spreader will push 10,000 pounds out that gate, those spinners cannot carry it. And then you make a bad problem worse. But anyways.
We talked a lot with Dee's.
Yes.
I was out there about, it sounds like there's a big need, you might agree with it, especially on soil types like that, for a lime injection. Start getting a subsurface injection rig where you're better managing the lime, right? And you're probably going to put it out a lot slower, not in the mass quantity,
Sure.
but if you can put it out in a higher concentration, where you kind of get down in that soil, it could potentially be more effective than a spinner spreader on those soil types. I don't know, that's just something to kind of discuss a little bit.
I mean,
Bring it all.
Oh, I know.
that's a briar patch.
It is. Well, that's why I've avoided it. I mean,
All of the script, conservation.
Some of it's minimal till, a lot of